Yes, hello, Marcus here from Savvy Solutions, coming at you with this week's sales tip. And this week we're talking about talking money. Oh my God, did he just mention the M word? He didn't go there. I know he didn't, money. It's kind of makes, depending on our backgrounds and our beliefs, it makes some people feel really awkward. And this can often come through in a sales conversation. So at some point, you're going to have to talk about the price of your product or service. And the questions is how do you talk about price, and how do you talk, and when do you talk about price? So they're probably the two key things that you want to get across. So there's a couple of things here. There is a time in a sales conversation that's at most ideal to talk about money, and that's at the end. This is particularly so if what you're selling is a higher end product or service. And there's a way that you can be constructing the conversation prior to the last frame of the conversation that will give you a much better chance of that presentation of the money going well. So that's part to understand, and all the previous videos that we've covered share with you tips as to how to do that. So let's say you've successfully been able to have the conversation take place at the end, not because you've ignored your client's request to talk about it earlier, but because you've learnt how to answer their desire to talk about it earlier in a way that has them feeling extremely comfortable to talk about it at a later time. There's a certain way to do that as well. So let's say you've successfully come to the end of the conversation and you're now just looking to talk about the money. There's a couple of things here. One is tone. Understand that tone is 5 times more powerful than words. Very, very important to understand that, because what I see happen a lot is people alter their tone quite significantly when it comes to talking about money. So they've had the sales conversation in a certain way, and then as they start talking about money, their tone becomes more hopeful, more desiring, or sometimes to offset that, it becomes more nonchalant. And either way, it's a bit of a mistake, because what happens is when you strongly alter your tone when you start talking about money, it actually fires off the reptilian brain in your prospective buyer and has them going back into fight or flight mode, has them suspecting that something unusual. The unusual tone that you're talking to them in has them suspecting something unusual is on the way. So that's one of the first big tips when talking about money at the end of your sales conversation, making sure that you're utilizing pretty much the same tone that you've used in the rest of the conversation. The other thing here is doing the inner work. And what I mean by that is if the figure that you go on to mention is a figure that you're actually a little bit uncomfortable with yourself, and this is not me saying that your figure's too high, it's about you, your inner game, your conversations between you and yourself. If you suspect that the figure, it's just not one that comfortably rolls off your tongue, then that will be felt by your prospective buyer. Very much so. It'll come through in your tone, it'll come through in demeanor, come through in your body language, come through in your word choices, it'll come through in everything. So there is a strong gift that you can give yourself in really doing whatever inner work is required, getting the assistance of someone if that's what's needed, or just you and yourself, and getting really, really comfortable with whatever figure you're going to share with the client, because you can't possibly expect them to have a higher level of comfort with your figure than what you have. So you must understand that they will only ever match your comfort level. So it's about becoming extremely confident and comfortable before you get to mentioning the figure. So that's another big tip there. And lastly, just to finish off this video, recapping. If you've had a decent length sales conversation, it is absolutely superb to recap some of the key milestones of that conversation just prior to mentioning conversation around money. It really helps create and open those neural pathways to receive the money conversation very, very favourably. And the order that you would want to do this in is recapping any of the emotional content that you've discovered along the way, the emotional needs of your prospective buyer, the problems that you're going to solve for them on an emotional level, and then recapping the problems that you're going to solve for them on a logical level, because of course money, the presentation of figures of money, is logical, and it's a bit like Russian dolls. Ideally, you want the figure that you're going to recommend to sit inside a much larger figure that's been established as you've been conversing with them in terms of the problem that your product or service is going to solve for them. So I trust there's some nuggets in there for you, and as ever, if you need any assistance around this, or you'd like some further clarification, just hit me up in the comments below or send me a PM. Have a cracking finish to the week in sales.